Shalom. Okay, right now is day 34 of studying the Bible until I'm becoming more like Jesus. So I just finished Mark chapter 11. So in this chapter, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of revelation I got. So let me break it down to you all. Alright, number one. It is in verse 1 to verse 11. Jesus really represent what is the true meaning of being a king. A king or a leader is a person who is humble, a person who is a servant that serves people, because Jesus came to this world not to be served but to serve people. And one of the example is that usually kings, when they are riding to a war, they usually enter with a powerful stallion or a powerful horse. But in this case, Jesus chose a young donkey, a beast represent burden and peace, and Jesus entered the city with a donkey instead of a horse. It really shows that true power, true leader comes with a humble authority and also with peace. Okay, second, I believe you guys know, when Jesus cursed a fig tree. So when Jesus cursed that fig tree, because the tree does not produce any fruits, and this directly represents that God judges empty religious hypocrisy, because God demands genuine spiritual fruit over outwards action. So if in your life we are just acting to be religious, we serve in church, we help people, but with an intention to gain something from them, with a bad intention of just to gain fame or gain money or to gain anything else into our life, it's just hypocrisy, and it's just us being religious because our heart posture was not correct, and we are not being pure and being genuine, and we are not connected to what God called us to do. So this directly connected to an event where Jesus, he overthrown the marketplace, because at the temple of God, those religious leaders, those elders, they use those place as a marketplace, but instead that place should be a place of prayer to everyone. So so when Jesus overthrown that place, right, Jesus turns the table. He was overwhelmed, he was furious. Jesus was condemning them for choking out the marginalized, because in deep meaning, those leaders, those sellers, they are hiding their greed behind holy rituals, and that's very dangerous. And third one, that's what I mean, is when Jesus tell his disciple that they can command, this mountain, if they command this mountain to throw itself into the sea, and if they believe it, it will happen. So, in Jewish thoughts, right, by mountain, it does not really just meant by our own personal obstacles, maybe for example waking up late, lust, greed. It's not just that, but by mountain in Jewish terms, in Jewish thoughts, it's actually symbolize established kingdoms and also spiritual strongholds in our life. So by this mean, Jesus is declaring that corrupt or any exclusive temple system or the corrupt world system that we are living right now, it will be completely cast down and removed, and the truth will be revealed. And the fourth thing that stood out to me, this is very, it's very related as well, because after promising an immense power in prayer by Jesus, right, Jesus command his disciple to forgive others, to forgive other people. I believe this is very hard for everyone, especially for me as well, because Jesus defines real fruit. Real fruit is the validity of your relationship with God through prayer and faith, and it is directly tied to your relationship with other people around you. So what does this mean? It means that unforgiveness blocks the flows of God's power in the believer's life. This is so true. It does not really mean that God does not want to forgive you just because you don't forgive your brothers, but it means that, okay, for example, if you don't forgive your brothers, right, you still hold that bitterness, that anger towards that person, and while holding it, you are serving your people, you are serving a church, whatever interaction that you do in your life, it won't be genuine. It will be intention, and at times the temptation will take over your heart and your mind, and whatever you say, what actions you do, what decision that you do, those bitterness, those anger, it will influence you. So what does this mean? This means you will be disconnected from God's truth. What is God's truth? God is love. God is peace. So by not forgiving people, by not loving that person, you are directly represent that. Whatever I do, it is through the devil's work. It is through the devil's work, the darkness, by Satan, and you are actively participating in it. By having bitterness, you are opening your heart, you are opening your spiritual stronghold to the devil to enter your heart. And that is why it blocks the flows of God's truth into your life. It will make you stubborn. It makes you spiritually blind. It makes you spiritually deaf. You will have eyes, but you can't see. You will have ear, but you cannot hear the truth. You will have a heart, but it is close to the truth. You will only accept your own comfort, and that's very dangerous. Okay, finally, this is a long video. I don't think I'm gonna put caption. I hope you all understand what I'm saying, and I hope you guys will listen. Okay, lastly, that stood out to me. It is the clash between divine sovereignty and self-preservation. Okay, this context comes from when the elders and those religious leaders, they were questioning Jesus. They asked Jesus, Jesus, by what authority are you doing this? So Jesus directly linked this to John the Baptist. So Jesus asked them, is John the Baptist comes from human or comes from God? And instead of those religious leaders trapping Jesus with a question, Jesus traps them back with this question. But in the end, those religious leaders, those elders, they answer by saying, I don't know. And what does this mean? It reveals that, they care more about protecting their own status, their own power, instead of acknowledging the reality in life. So this is so important. This highlights human flaws, human weakness. For example, when truth in our life threatens our comfort or position in our life, right? Me and you, most of the time, we will choose ignorance. We will most probably lie. We will use a easier escape just to protect our ego, just to protect our pride. And after that, when those religious leaders answer, I don't know, right? Jesus does not tell them by what authority he is from. This does not mean Jesus ignoring them or Jesus does not care about them, but this is a form of immediate divine judgment, because God does not debate with the insincere person, with the person who are not sincere, because the intention of those religious leaders was just to trap him. They don't want to know the truth. Same with us, okay? You may have friends in your life, who need help, but you question them, you correct them, you teach them, but their heart are closed. They are spiritually blinded, spiritually deaf. They have ears, but they don't want to hear. They have eyes, they don't want to see. So in the end, there's no point debating. If those leaders truly know God's work in John the Baptist, right, they won't even question it. And I believe this same goes with our purpose in life. Some people, they respond by saying, it's not saying that I'm angry with this type of people. I'm just saying that I'm questioning this type of people. This type of people who is, they say, oh, I'll pray first, God called me to spread the word, but I'm so scared. I'm gonna pray for signs. I'm gonna pray for whether or not God want me to spread the word, or whether or not God want me to make disciples. When it comes to God authority, right, we do not need human credentials. We do not need human validation. We do not need any validation even from God, because why not from God? It is already written in the word. God already calls us to go spread the word to the whole world, to make disciples, to build church. It's already written. Why are